Country Fellow Speaks here again. I want to talk about how I put my shows to music. So first thing I want to talk about is fusing lengths and fusing timings. Check out my previous video, which talked about how I fuse my cakes together and how I connect them using fuse, and how I also use my firing system with those, and how I talk about fusing them together. And sure, if you have a Cobra system or something like that, you could do better timing, but I just run a single fuse through most of my shows. I do 5 or 6 songs, and each song has its own palette with fireworks on it, and each of those are fused with one fuse. And then I use the igniters to ignite the first cake on those. So I want to talk about how to work on your fusing timing, because when I get into the way I actually do the songs and getting the cakes selected that I do for my songs, I want to talk about how I do my fuses. Now, first thing you'll notice when you look at these different varieties of fuses, this one doesn't even tell us the burn time. You've got some like this that says 1 second per inch burn time, and that's great, but maybe not. I'll talk about that in a minute. Sometimes you get some like this, and it says 10 seconds per foot. My suggestion would be not to do things by foot, but to do them by inch, and correlate for every inch how many seconds that would be. And we're going to go through that math in this video as well to see how I come up with my numbers. This one, you can see, has 9 to 13 seconds. Well, if you're doing a music and you're putting fireworks to music, 4-second differential is a long time. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, that could really mess up your show. So I'm going to show you what I do every year to make sure that whatever fusing I'm using works correctly. And then I have this fuse, which is almost like instant fuse. I think it burns at 1/10 of a second per inch. So if I want things to go off all at once, I use this. Now what I do is I take these fuses and I take about a 3-inch section. And the reason I take about a 3-inch section is 3 is a pretty good number to divide by, but also when I used to do 2 inches, but when you do 2 inches, that's such a small fuse that whoever's recording it for you, for example, I would light this, let my wife time it, and by the time she started the video, as soon as I lit it, sometimes the fuse will be done before she can stop the timer. So I went 3 inches. 3 inches works really well. Of course, 6 inches would be better, but you would be dividing by 6 in the equation that I'm going to talk about later. So I do 3 inches, and I do each one of these. Now, I would strongly suggest you tape these down when you're testing these fuse timings. The reason I suggest that is these things will go airborne. 2 out of 2 times I have tested a fuse without taping it down, it has gone airborne. Once towards my face, the second one at my wife's face. So we always tape these down. Also, I noticed when those fuses go airborne, you're going to lose your fuse timing, because you got to find where the fuse landed to see if it's even done burning. I suggest you tape these down. So let's talk about these different fuses and how I check the time. So I will, again, have one person time this. I will light it. We will use a counter or we will time a stopwatch to see how long this is. And that'll tell me for 3 inches how many seconds that takes. I will do it for the second one and all the way through for my different colors and different types of fuses, so I know exactly what I'm working with. Well, let's get into the math now. I've got a few examples here that I want to share with you. For example, I've got this pink fuse that I showed you just a minute ago. And by the way, why do you want to test these? Well, not only because they don't give you the timing, but I have found that based on your altitude, based on the humidity outside, even based on where you're located, fuse times can vary a little bit. And so you want to test these, especially if you're going to time these to music. And here's the equations I use. This pink fuse, I took 3 inches. And when I lit this pink fuse, it burned in 4.5 seconds. So what I did, I took my 4.5 seconds, I divide that by the 3 inches, and what that does is that tells me how many seconds per inch. So I know that when I'm using this pink fuse, every inch will be 1.5 seconds. And so what's the benefit of that? Well, let's say that I have part of my song that lasts 30 seconds. And so I've connected to a cake. That cake is going off. I've got 30 seconds to get to the next, or 30 seconds before the next cake needs to go off. So as soon as this cake ignites and it's going off, I need 30 seconds to get to the next one, because this cake burns at 30 seconds. I want my fuse to be 30 seconds to get to the next cake so that they don't overlap each other, or so there's no dead time. So again, the math, 3 inches, it was 4.5 seconds. So I divided that by 3 because that was my inches. If you do a 6-inch piece, divide by 6, and that will get you seconds per inch. So if I wanted to do a 30-second piece of my song, I would take my 30 seconds, I would divide by whatever I got from my pink fuse, and I would know how many inches to do. So if I needed 30 seconds, this cake is going off, and it's going to take 30 seconds before my next case. Now I know exactly how much fuse to actually measure, and I would use my tape measure, and I would measure out the 20 inches, and then I could figure out how to fuse it. And I wouldn't cut the fuse. I would just know that, hey, from the time this cake goes off until it gets to the next case, there needs to be 20 seconds. And then I would do the next part of the song, and the next part of the song, and the next part of the song, till I get through the entire song. Let's do another example. This red fuse, when I tested it, it went at about 9.7 seconds. So I divided the 9.7 seconds by 3, because my fuse piece is 3 inches, and I get 3.23 seconds per inch. So you could call that 3 1/4, 3.2. It's not going to be perfect, but you get the gist. Let's say I want to do that 30-second piece. Well, I would divide the 30 seconds by 3.2 if I'm using the red fuse, and I get that, hey, I need 9.375 inches, or 9 3/8 inches. So why would I want to do this? Well, let's say my cake happens to be 12 inches long, and my fuse is on this side. My next cake has a fuse on this side. If I use the red, I've only got 9 3/8 inches, so my fuse will be too short to make it to my next cake. So I would want to go to a different fuse like this pink, because then I have 20 inches. 20 inches would cover my 12-inch cake and give me a little room to play with for my next one. That's how I would choose my fuses. So why not just do them all with the pink fuse instead of the red? Well, let's say you have a cake that's maybe 3 inches long, and you do the math and you get a 20-inch piece, because this small cake here is going 30 seconds, but you've got 20 inch of fuse. Do you really want all this excess fuse just hanging around off of your fireworks display for somebody to trip over, for it to snag, for it to get wet, fall on the grass? So sometimes using a shorter fuse is beneficial. Plus, when you tape these fuses to the cakes, it's easier to tape a smaller fuse. Now, by the way, when you're doing these setups for the songs that I'm getting ready to show you in a minute, always remember that there's 60 seconds in a minute. And I know I don't mean to talk down to anybody. I've got a master's degree in mathematics, and I've made this mistake myself, because you get hot, you're sweaty, you're trying to get this done, you get a little frustrated, you've got 6 things on your mind, and I'll show you how easy it is to trip yourself up. You need to really be cautious about this. So, next, how do I break up my songs? Well, I'll give you an example. And this will probably be done better if you were to do it in a spreadsheet or Excel or something. However, what I do is, you'll notice my numbers here. For this song here is Sabotage. So I'm doing this song Sabotage, and by the way, you can tell I'm a paper and pencil type of guy. I played the song Sabotage, and what you've noticed here is at 0, the song starts. Hey, we have music. At 16 seconds, hey, we've actually got our verse started. And sometimes I'll put some keywords so I know what the verse is. And now I can see that, hey, the first music is going to run for 16 seconds. So whatever firework I do for the introductory music needs to be a 16-second fireworks. However, then when I get to this next one, I say, okay, now the speed's going slower. Why would I write that down? Here, I want a fast firing cake. Here, I want a slow firing cake. And it starts at 40 seconds, so I know there's 24 seconds for this part to run. And so this is how I know which cakes to pick. So then I have this list, and again, this would probably be better online, but I take every one of my fireworks, I write down the name of them, I figure out the duration, that is the time when the fuse actually ignites the firework to start doing its thing until the effect has pretty well dissipated. How long does it last? I do spacing. For example, if you have multiple breaks, how much spacing between the time the first break goes off till the second break goes off? And I put that spacing. I also put how many shots. That's important because if you've got a really fast part of the song, you want more shots. You don't want slow spacing. If you have a slow part of the song, you want slow spacing, maybe fewer shots. I also put what they do here, like pastels, strobe, crackle. I do that because if you saw my previous videos, I told you how important it is to have variety. You don't want to have 3 strobe cakes going at once, and you don't want to have too much crackle going at once. You don't want strobe to go off with crackle because crackle will override your strobe and you won't really get to see it. So I do this on all of my fireworks, and so then I can do some planning. Well, let's go back here, okay? Let's look at this lyric from Sabotage. I needed 16 seconds, correct? So I need to find me a 16-second firework. So I go back to this page and I look down my durations here. And as I look down my durations, I'm going to try to find something that's 16 seconds. Come over here and keep looking till I find something that's 16 seconds. For example, go to this monkey business here. 18 seconds is pretty close. So I might use that one, or I might go all the way down here to this Mojo here, which is actually 16 seconds. Now I know I have a firework that would work in that window. And what happens if I have multiples? Well, now you go to the duration. If it's a fast part of the song, 1 second spacing would be great. But if this is a slow part of the song, I probably wouldn't want to use Mojo. I might want to use something else that's closer to 16 seconds. And I also do the shots, because if you have a limited number of shots, you may want multiple cakes, or you may want to space it out, that type of thing. So these are the kind of numbers I use to design my shows. I will, if anybody's actually interested in seeing my July the 4th show last year where I synced it to songs and you can actually see how the timing hit. For the most part, it went really well. The music cut out a couple of times, and I've talked about that in my first video on how to plan for that show. But if you want to see that show and how the music lined up really well with just this backyard fireworks show, just from this country fellow who decided to want to put his show to music because it's much more entertaining when there's music going on in the background, I will be glad to share that link with you. I had a friend of mine record that video. And so when he recorded that, he wanted that to go on his YouTube page, and I was perfectly glad to let him do it because at the time I wasn't posting videos. So I will be glad to share that with you. So one more time, I want to go through the equation. I choose to do 3 inches. I time it as they've been tied down, divide by how long it was. I did 3 inches, so divide by time by 3 inches, and that tells you how much time per inch. So if I wanted a 30-second, if I had a 30-second cake going off during my song, or if my song has a 30-second break, how much fuse would it take to run along that cake so that it finishes before my next one goes? So I would take my time divided by whatever I found here for my length, and that would tell me how long my fuse needs to be from where it touches the first fuse until igniting the second fuse. I hope this has helped you guys on designing your show, putting it to music, doing the timing, testing your fuses, and those types of things. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Leave comments if you would, so that we can get this information out to more people. You'll aid in the YouTube algorithm so that we can share this with more people. The next video I'm going to talk about will be on how I buy fireworks and how I get them so cheap, and some tips that I've found when you go to practically any fireworks shop, how to get the best deals, how to get the best prices, and how to spend things, and also talk about some things that you should buy for your fireworks show that you might or might not have thought about. Thank you for tuning in. God bless.